This is it. We're finally here. It's been at least 19 years since we last got a Metroid game, so a lot is at stake here. And it's good. No, seriously, it's great even, and this isn't a bit. I genuinely believe that this is the strongest game in the series. And if you're looking for a reason to get the game, stop looking. Just get it. The controls are buttery smooth, the atmosphere is very crisp. If you're only here for a simple review, that's it. Congrats, you know what to do.
Sir, here is a check with my name on it. Write down any number on this piece of paper and I will pay it.
As for those who are here to explore the game and get my full opinion and all the nuance that comes with it, sit back, relax, and let's get into it. So, I'm not here to waste your time. That being said, I do feel it's necessary to establish a few things before moving forward. I'll have timestamps so you can skip around to each section to your choosing. First things first, it's very important to discuss the game's history so we can see why it took so long, which will then allow us to answer if it was worth the wait. It's also important to establish exactly what is Metroid. Now, I'm going to sound crazy, but those who don't know, there's a genre named after this game. It's called Metroidvania. It's kind of a dumb name, but whatever. It's important to lay out exactly what that means, and some of the standards that was set by that genre. Essentially, I'm going to lay out what makes the game tick. And after that, I'll just give some closing thoughts, and you'll probably go on about your day and share this video, maybe, perhaps. So, the history of this game is actually pretty interesting. It dates as far back as 2005. It was supposed to be on the DS, the original DS. Supposedly, it was in early prototyping for a few years, with the goal to advance the mechanics laid out in Metroid Fusion. Sakamoto wanted to explore what was called fear-based gameplay. Essentially, he wanted to expand on the concept of the SAX from Fusion. For those who don't know, the SAX was a scripted enemy that would appear at certain points of the game in Metroid Fusion and chase you. Based off the marketing of this game, they seemed to put the focus on the main enemy, the EMMI, doing just that. So I said in 2005, but Sakamoto actually tried making this thing twice. And it was halted because of the limitations of the hardware at the time, and the prototypes just didn't meet his standards. You notice how I mentioned the SAX and expanding on that? Well, they kind of did, and they kind of didn't. Now, before you come at me, I know that's a controversial opinion, and it's gonna get a little dicier, so let me preface this by saying that I love the EMMI. The music, the presentation, and the concept alone make them one of the best villains in Metroid history. But I don't feel it's much different from the SAX. I mean, really, what's different? They're both enemies that loom over you and you can't damage them until, oh wait, you can, where their primary function is to chase you. Sure, the EMMI have bigger rooms and they aren't nearly as scripted, but I was expecting something more akin to Alien Isolation than SAX 2.0. You see, I would have loved it if the first few EMMI operated as they do now, where you can't fight them, you can only run. But then later on in the game we receive a new ability or something other than the counter we have to scare them away for a bit longer, similar to the flamethrower in Alien Isolation. Like some kind of EMP or something. Not outright killing them, but something that changes the dynamic a bit. I should say what we have right now isn't bad. It's just more of a half step in evolving the gameplay. I suppose I did go a little hard, but realized I had to kill the EMMI like 7 times. But that being said, I won't lie, the EMMI are pretty fucking cool. So moving on, the genre of the game is a Metroidvania, which, yes, I know is a silly genre name. It's both simple and not. Hearing the name, one can conclude that, oh duh, it's based off of 2 games. Which, yes, sure, that's kind of true, but which one? Which Metroid are we talking about? If we just dissect the word and count Metroids, we have like 2 Metroid games to base it off of. Your more linear ones like Metroid Fusion and Samsung Returns. And you also have the more open ones like Zero Mission and Super Metroid. Jesus, you even have first-person Metroid games and even pinball. My point being is it's not exactly easy to pinpoint what we're talking about here. But, luckily there are some standards that the game should follow for it to count as a Metroidvania. Simply put, a Metroidvania should have at least 2 things. 1. Level design should be interconnected where areas loop in on themselves and other areas. 2. Player progression is also key, where most of your power-ups not only serve as enemy killers if they have to, but allow for new ways to explore the game world while unlocking new areas. And by the end of the game, you should notice that your character plays very different from when you first started. So it's pretty obvious that this is indeed a Metroidvania. It certainly fills all the requirements. The next question people usually ask themselves is, well, what distinguishes it? Which Metroidvania camp does it belong to on the Metroidvania spectrum? God, I fucking hate that I said that. Basically, is it a fusion or is it a Super Metroid? And the answer is yes. So let me explain. When I was first writing this video or jotting down notes, I knew it had to be a follow-up to Metroid Fusion when it comes to story. It was also a follow-up to Mercury Steam's Samus Returns when it comes to gameplay. So, on my first playthrough, I didn't focus on sequence breaking. If it happened, it happened. But I did stumble across the power bombs, or at least the expansions for them, and so did many other players. And we were all met with the same text. It pretty much said you found some item that you can't use yet, which at the time, I was pretty devastated. I'm not gonna lie. I concluded to myself that there wasn't gonna be sequence breaking, but to be honest, I was still having a great time, and I wasn't gonna let that detract from that. Now, after beating the game, which was like 10 hours or so on my first playthrough, I wanted to see if there was any speedruns, and oh my god. I saw that people were getting the grapple beam and the morph ball bombs before fighting Kraid, and they used it to beat him. And this isn't a glitch. Mercury Steam accounted for this. There's actually a crevice in the wall that you bomb, and then it launches you into Kraid's stomach. You're rewarded. You can basically get rid of the entire second half of the fight, which is awesome. To me, this felt like Christmas morning. I needed to play the game again. I then understood at this point what the game was. It's a perfect blend of fusion and Super Metroid. You see, Adam will act as your guiding hand. He says enough so you don't get lost without revealing too much. And for those that can sequence break, you're free to do so. This to me is the perfect balance I've been looking for. The game transcended my expectations. Mercury Steam decided to grab what worked with the games before and experiment here and there a little bit. The only thing is, player progression and items felt a little too familiar. Like, I knew by the 7th hour mark when I picked up the gravity suit that the game was coming to an end. That being said, the new Aeon abilities were wonderful, especially the flash ability. Though I do feel more utility could have been used with the Phantom Cloak, especially with some bosses. Like, maybe if some bosses saw you disappear right before their eyes, they would have a small animation looking for you before attacking. Though, I do get how balancing that would be a little difficult, it's just kind of a thought. I think the other important aspect of a Metroidvania is the world. And to be honest, Mercury Steam's last Metroid game was held back by the hardware, and it kind of showed, especially with how purple and bland the world looked at times. That being said, Dread's world is absolutely stunning. Sure, it has all the tropes like Lava World, Forest World, Underwater World 2, Electric Boogaloo. But it does throw some curveballs at you, like previous areas being frozen solid at one point, changing the way you navigate the game. Now, if you know me, you know I love the Prime series, and Prime 1 especially has the most gorgeous world in the series, at least in my opinion. This is the first time that I've felt a 2D game was able to match and even transcend Prime's atmosphere. So my hopes now are just that Prime 4 and the next 2D game keep going bigger and better with the atmosphere. I could go on for hours about just how much I love this game. Trust me. After the disappointments I've had in the past few years, this has been a breath of fresh air. I feel like the series is on track again, to say the very least, and the galaxy is at peace. I'm also very glad everyone seems to be enjoying it, and if you don't, well...
Don't you have to be stupid somewhere else?
Honestly, it's not so bad being a Metroid fan nowadays. It's been a little rocky, but someone tweeted this out recently, which is also a great indication that Metroid is here to stay. I will say, I absolutely hate that I couldn't get any of the amiibo or the collector's edition. Though, when it comes to the collector's edition, I feel like I didn't lose out on much. It's kind of a downgrade since Samus Returns. You know, I kind of actually hate that. We're definitely not incentivized to pick up the games physically anymore. You see, I decided to be a fool and wait for the game's release day. I opted to buy the physical copy of the game, and everyone was playing the game a day before me, which isn't anything to lose sleep over, even though I did. It just sucks. At least I got these cool pins. Honestly, I don't have much else here for you. Subscribe if you haven't, and I'll see you next mission.